Finally! A new year's upon us. That means that the struggle of logging on every Tuesday to try and decide if I want to play Nunu this week for the chest, well, that's finally over. Unless... No. No, this is all wrong. At this point, it's been 392 days since the last season started back in December 7th. That's 56 weeks, and if you're going by league time, that's 56 hex deck boxes that we've had to open up without the counter resetting, and there's no end in sight. Due to last season starting and ending a little bit early, players have had to deal with the longest combination of season and preseason since the beginning of time. I know that a lot of folks have straight up given up in their attempts to open up a new box every week. Now, the most common reason that I hear for this is that people say that they're not getting enough key fragments in the new honor system. And guys, I get it. A lot of the times it feels like complete RNG, and you don't really know from where or when these key fragments are actually going to come to you. The other most common reason I see for people deciding to throw in the towel are the people that are so dedicated to one small subset of champions that they don't really earn any more chests aside from the initial 3 that they get at the beginning of a season. These lunatics are out there somewhere sitting on a stockpile of like 100 key fragments, and honestly it probably doesn't bother them that much. I mean, what's the point in getting a random skin shard when all you end up playing is Riven, Yasuo, and Vayne? Kinda makes you wish that Riot had some sort of matchmaking service, that way these two types of players could find each other and complete each other. But this video isn't for people like that. This is for people like me who have earned a chest every single week since the beginning of Season 7. The players who have slogged through getting an S rank on almost half of League's entire roster. And as time goes by, the pool of available champions just keeps on dwindling and dwindling until we're left in the same awkward position as everybody else. The only champions that we have left are either the ones that we don't enjoy, or the ones that are just so terrible that you won't even entertain the idea of slogging through 3 or more games of them just trying to get that S rank. That's where I've found myself for the past month or so, and I'm ashamed to admit that it's driven me to some pretty desperate measures. It was under these circumstances where I first realized that I hadn't yet gotten my chest on one of League's most notorious characters, Malphite. Now, it's no secret that the community has been pretty divided on Malphite as a champion ever since his inception. Some love him, while others, well...
It was at this time that I called this Malphite a fucking worthless, brain-dead, scum-fuck bastard,
he's fucking useless. He literally doesn't do anything.
Mental
you realize he
dick
doesn't do anything,
that
right?
should
Like,
be
he's literally
gunned down
fucking
in the
useless.
street like the
Yeah, he's acting
degenerate
like a motherfucker,
he is.
too.
And to be honest, it's not that hard to see why people might have a thing against Malphite. Between his terrible-looking in-game model and his relatively boring playstyle, there really isn't too much to love. But surely there's some reason why some people like to play him, so to truly understand what makes up Malphite as a champion, let's take a cursory glance at his kit. His passive is Granite Shield. It's pretty boring passive all in all. It's a shield that regenerates outside of combat equal to 10% of his max HP. If you're playing him in the jungle, you can make the choice to sacrifice some of your speed in clearing camps in order to come out with the jungle with a little bit more HP by waiting for your shield to come back online. Or, since you're playing Malphite, you can also just turn your brain off and mindlessly clear through the camps while you farm until 6. His Q, Rock and Roll. Malphite's Q is actually pretty weird from a lore perspective. In no other part of his kit does he show that he has the ability to manipulate stone. He's just kind of a big rock golem dude. His Q rolls a wheel of stone at a target enemy which does 0 damage and it steals some movement speed. Visually, it's pretty unimpressive. Somehow it looks cooler when a 12-year-old girl's doing the same move in Avatar. For top lane, this is pretty much your bread and butter for poke. And for jungle, well, it's kinda useless outside of ganks. His W is the Clap, and boy oh boy do I fucking hate this ability. Passively, leveling this ability increases your armor by a flat percentage. When you use the active, however, the bonus is tripled, and your autos end up doing some AoE splash damage that scales with your armor and AP. This is easily Malphite's second most important ability, but we'll get into that later. What's more important is that I stress to you guys how fucking terrible it feels to use Malphite's W. There are already several precedents in the game that dictate how an auto reset is supposed to work on a champion. There's Darius W, Camille Q, Jax W, really just countless options. But Malphite's a guy that doesn't like to play by the rules. Instead of resetting his auto attack animation like any other champion in this game with an auto reset, Malphite sometimes likes to bend the rules a little bit by striking this dumbfuck Superman pose at random times, canceling your auto and making you wait what feels like a full second before you can actually complete your auto attack. I hate this thing. It's clunky looking, it feels awful, and it feels like I'm actively being punished for pressing my W. Malphite's E. Ground Slam. Rather than slapping an enemy champion with his W, Malphite grows frustrated with his outdated kit and slaps the ground instead. It's a small AoE burst that originates from where you're standing, and it also reduces enemies' attack speed by a sizable chunk. Additionally, it scales with 40% of Malphite's total armor, so it further incentivizes him stacking fat armor. Visually, it looks pretty unimpressive, but this ability is actually what wins Malphite a shitload of his matchups. Malphite's ultimate, Unstoppable Force. Or, in other words, the only reason why anybody actually plays Malphite. Malphite grows even more frustrated than with his E, and once again decides to slap the ground, this time using his entire body. This is what you've suffered for. Malphite's only satisfying ability, his ultimate. This is the bread and butter of any team's wombo combo and an absolutely game-changing ability. This thing ensures that even if you're feeding, you're still going to be at least somewhat relevant. It's a quick, speedy dash in a target direction that knocks up everybody in the impact zone once you reach there. Iterate has pretty fat base damage, but if you're interested in trolling your team, it's worth noting that this ability also has a 1-to-1 AP ratio. One of the most interesting things about Malphite is that if you ever look him up on Champion.gg or Lolalytics or LolKing or any of these analytic websites that pull stats from ranked games, you'll notice that he's usually in the top 5, and if he's not in the top 5, he's usually pretty close. Now, this might lead some people to believe that Malphite is one of those sleeper OP champions that nobody really picks, but, you know, once you go against one, they just absolutely booty blast you. But the reason behind Malphite's success is actually a lot simpler than that. You see, Malphite's entire kit is completely front-loaded to reward stacking armor. Buying MR on him feels really shitty because of how hard his W and E scale with your total armor value. I mean, without even doing anything, Malphite just straight up gets more armor for getting armor in the first place. He isn't overpowered, he just exists in the game as the hardest counter to AD top laners. He'll starve his enemy team's bruiser out of any gold to win lane, and then proceed to be a massive asset to his team with one of the best hard engages in the game. You don't pick Malphite to have fun. You pick him to play League as a game of rock, paper, scissors. AD champions usually have sharp weapons, they're the scissors. Malphite is a big-ass rock. You do the math. Unfortunately for me, I don't have the liberty of waiting for a good matchup to pick Malphite into. I'm here trying to earn an S for the chest. Luckily for us, there's a new build that's circulating around for Malphite that's made possible by the new rune system. The idea is that you take the Transcendence rune, which gives you 10% cooldown reduction at level 10, but more importantly, it rewards you for overloading on CDR by giving you an additional 20 AP for every 10% you go over the cap. With this rune equipped, you build a single Seraph's Embrace and an inventory full of Frozen Hearts. The idea is that this gives you an absolutely massive amount of armor, mana, and AP. Seraphs will give you additional AP based on your mana pool, as well as an active shield that scales with your total mana, and Frozen Heart is one of the best mana stacking items in the game. It also gives you the most armor out of any item, and like I said before, most of Malphite's damage comes from him stacking either armor or AP. With this build, it's actually possible to do both. Frozen Heart gives you 20% CDR, and since you're going to be building around 5 of these, you're going to be getting a sizable chunk of AP from your Transcendence rune, which is really what makes all of this possible. Basically, this is the perfect build where everything scales with everything. The perfect build where Riot Meddler, the head of the balance team, is considering nerfing it. The perfect build that only takes about 40 minutes to come online. Ah, jeez, they don't like my build. I swear it's good, guys. We got the late game. Alright. So that one didn't work out too great, but the next game for sure. Oh, Jesus. Alright, one of these assholes added me to flame some more. Oh, hey, what a nice guy. This guy is a model player. Maybe this community just gets a bad rep. Maybe there really is some good out there in the League of Legends community. Nope, it's definitely as bad as it was before. Overall, I'd have to say that Malphite really isn't too bad of a champion in the sense that he has a niche that he excels in. If you really just want to ruin a Yasuo's day and mentally break them top lane to the point where they just start running it down mid, Malphite's your guy. His E reduces attack speed by 50% at max rank, which is hilarious when you hit somebody with it because it just completely neuters ADCs in the mid game, and they'll start canceling autos as much as your W makes you cancel your own. His ulti is an incredible engage, and I'd be lying to you if I told you that it wasn't a blast to just roll into 5 people and knock them all up. Unfortunately, Malphite suffers from being a champion that is old as sin and really looking the part. He's supposed to be this living mountain, but I'm pretty sure that he's smaller than Darius. Also, I know I was using a skin that kind of masks a lot of these visual problems, but Malphite really just looks like shit. For some reason, he's inexplicably wearing a rock speedo, he looks like he's got a huge dandruff problem whenever his passive pops, and part of his face that you think is his nose? Yeah, that's his entire head. He looks like if League had a cheat mode that you could enable by collecting 45 precursor orbs where you enable tiny head mode. If I had to rate it, I'd give Malphite a 4 out of 10 in my experience trying to earn his chest. Also, this is what was inside. Got to be kidding me.